I was halfway home on Highway 47 when a patrol car lit me up and a cop pressed a folded note into my palm. "Do not go home tonight," he whispered. "The woman in your house isn't your wife." My name is Wade Walker. I built 3 auto shops with busted knuckles and 5 a.m. coffee, and I thought I understood risk. But nothing prepared me for a stranger warning me away from my own front door. He wouldn't explain, just a look of pity, a flash of disgust, and the words, "He's already inside." Inside my house. Inside my safe. Inside my life. If you're a man who's ever bet everything on a family, listen carefully. In the next minute, I'm going to show you the note that cracked my marriage like glass, the first lie I missed, and the choice that turned me from husband to hunter. Judge me later. For now, ask yourself, would you turn the key? I didn't inherit anything but a bad back and a stubborn streak. My father taught me 2 tools, a socket wrench and showing up. I opened my first bay in a rented cinder block box between a pawn shop and a payday lender. I fixed more brakes than I ate hot meals. Word spread the way it always does in towns like mine. Quietly, 1 shop became 2, 2 became 3. I kept a coffee pot burning at 5 a.m., a light over the back door at midnight, and a promise I never broke. If I say it's fixed, it's fixed. Folks trusted me with the cars that carried their kids, their parents, their paychecks. That kind of trust makes a man feel 10 feet tall, until he learns someone's been crawling through the vents. I thought I understood risk. Engines are honest. What's broken shows itself if you listen. People can idle smooth with a cracked block. And the knock in my life was about to get loud. The first rattle started at home. I met Jessica at a barbecue behind the parts warehouse. She was laughing at a joke that wasn't funny, which told me she was kind. We married in a church with thin carpet and stronger vows. 15 years is a long highway. We drove it together. Birthdays, funerals, busted water heaters, slow summers. She balanced receipts without a calculator and remembered vendors' kids by name. I loved that about her. I loved the quiet competence, the way she turned chaos into lists. I told customers, my wife sets the thermostat in our house and the tone in our life. We weren't flashy. Sunday dinners, yard work, a weekend drive if the weather behaved. It looked like a marriage you could lean on. Maybe that's why I leaned too hard. When you trust a person, you stop checking the latches. You stop watching for drafts. You tell yourself the shiver is just the AC kicking on. That night, the temperature dropped for real. We bought a place on a ridge that looked over town like a porch light. 2-car garage, flag on the post, grill that could feed a little league team. I stained the deck myself and left a scuff that only I can see. Jessica picked the paint, the lamps, the rug that says "Welcome" in a script I can't read without smiling. If you've ever carried a mortgage you weren't sure you could, you know the pride when you make year 5. The house becomes a story about who you are, consistent, reliable, rooted. I kept spare keys in the mudroom and spare cash in the safe, because the world is what it is. Still, our home felt like the one place that didn't negotiate with trouble. You walk in, the day falls off your shoulders. You breathe. You believe. It's easy to miss hairline cracks when the view is good. That view was about to tilt by a single folded note. My code is simple. Do the job right. Pay on time. Shake hands like a promise. Don't take what isn't yours. Not time, not money, not hope. Older folks taught me that saving your receipts says as much about you as paying your bills. I fixed cars for widowers who needed a fair price and for moms who needed the truth more than good news. I thought my rules protected me. Truth is, rules protect you from honest mistakes. They don't stop deliberate lies. Trust, I learned, is a door without a peephole. You open it based on memory and a smile. Most days that's enough. On the worst day of my marriage, it wasn't. If you're my age, you know how strange it feels when a life built on habits suddenly wobbles. Your hands reach for a tool you don't have. That tool arrived the way trouble always does, after dark, uninvited. It was an ordinary October evening, cool enough for a jacket, warm enough to pretend summer wasn't done. I was at my desk with quarterly reports, chasing pennies that hide between lines. Jessica leaned on the doorway, lip gloss fresh, hair done like Sunday. "I'm heading to Gale's," she said, her sister across town. Wine, movies, nothing big. I smiled, because people like us don't make drama out of errands. But when she turned, I saw her check her phone as if waiting for a green light only she could see. I looked back at the invoices, circled a number that didn't matter, and told myself not to be petty. Married folks know the dance: a question, a shrug, a kiss at the door that answers neither. The house sighed when she left. I filed 2 more pages, turned off the lamp, and grabbed my keys. Highway 47 was waiting with an education. I've kissed my wife in good weather and bad luck. You know a person's mouth better than your own after 15 years. The coffee, the mint, the rush. This one was careful. Not cold, just staged, like a handshake in front of a camera. Her perfume was new. I couldn't name it, but it didn't smell like home. She touched my cheek, eyes tracking past me for a second, the way you do when you're late and polite at the same time. I hated how quickly my mind wrote a story. Maybe Gail's having a hard week. Maybe Jessica just needed to feel pretty. Men my age learn to choose peace over pride some days. I chose peace. I watched her taillights slip down the hill, 2 red dots sliding into the dark. I told myself to get back to work. My work followed me to the road, with flashing blue lights. The radio murmured game scores and farm reports, the kind of noise that keeps a man between ditches. My phone sat screen down. I wasn't expecting anything but invoices in the morning. Still, something offbeat in my chest wouldn't settle. Call it instinct. Call it a loose bolt. I took Highway 47 because it's faster and because routine felt like a rope. That's when a patrol car eased onto the shoulder, then back into traffic in front of me. I slowed without thinking. Habit. Respect. The blue lights didn't hit me. They hit the white BMW in the right lane, the one I knew too well by its tiny bumper scuff I never got around to fixing. Jessica. She's the cautious one. A warning. A wave. That's what I expected. But the cop took longer than a warning, longer than a wave. And when he finally looked up, he looked past her, to me. If you've ever had a cop look at you with pity, you remember. It's a flavor of mercy you don't want. He took Jessica's license, ran it, and whatever came back on the screen knocked the casual out of his posture. He asked her a question. She answered with a smile that belongs in church, not on the side of a highway. He nodded, walked to his cruiser, then changed course like a man who made a hard choice. He came to my window. "Sir," he said, quiet. "Step out a second." I stood there with the smell of hot brakes and pine all around us. He didn't touch me. He didn't threaten me. He pressed something into my palm, a folded square of paper, soft with sweat that wasn't mine. "Listen," he said, voice just above the crickets. "You need to hear this." I unfolded the note with hands that fix things, and this I could not fix. 4 lines. That's all it took to turn a house into a stranger. "Do not go home tonight." I read it twice before I let my eyes find the next sentence. "The woman in your bed isn't who you think." My name was there. My safe. A man I fired years ago. "He is inside your life already." The officer didn't explain. He just stared at the asphalt like it might answer for him. "I can't do more," he said. "But you helped people who helped me once." Then he stepped back, tipped his chin, and left me with every creak in my bones suddenly loud. If you've ever had the ground move under your boots, you know you don't run, you balance. I folded the note like it might cut me if I didn't. I looked at the road home. I looked away. I chose the one thing I never do on principle. I didn't go home. The officer didn't scare me. The look in his eyes did. Pity sits wrong on a man in uniform. "Sir," he said, almost apologizing, "do not go home tonight." He didn't lecture, didn't reach for his radio, just slid the folded note into my palm like a priest passing a prayer. I've been pulled over for taillights and tag stickers. I know the drill. This wasn't that. He kept his voice low, like the pines might be listening. "I can't explain. Just get somewhere safe." Then he glanced at the BMW, then back at me, and the disgust was quick but clear, like a flash of heat under a pan. He walked away before I could argue. I've spent decades fixing problems with the right part and a steady hand. This one didn't come with a part number. I tucked the note under the steering wheel, swallowed the iron taste in my mouth, and waved Jessica on. I wasn't ready to know, but I knew enough. I caught up to her at the next exit and suggested dinner like it was any other weeknight. Long day, I said. Let's eat. She hesitated a beat, half a heartbeat I felt in my teeth, then smiled. We went to the kind of place with laminated menus and pie under glass. She ordered the salad she always swore she liked. I ordered meatloaf I wasn't going to taste. Married folks our age can talk about nothing for an hour and call it catching up. We did that. Vendors, Gail's garden, a neighbor's new fence. I kept my tone easy and my hands steady around the water glass. If you're over 30, you know the value of buying time. It's the one thing that ever pays you back with interest. When the server dropped the check, I excused myself. Restroom, I said, like it was a small thing. I carried the folded square into a stall like a secret I wasn't sure I deserved. I opened the note carefully, like it might tear and take my life with it. 4 lines, no flourish, no rumor, just a cut made with a sharp blade. Don't go home. Your wife isn't who you think. He's already inside your life. Then the hook that snagged old scar tissue, Patrick Malone. I hadn't said that name in years, but my hands remembered it, the way you remember where the heavy wrench hangs. The stall was quiet except for the soft hum of lights and a father telling a kid to wash up at the sink. The world kept turning while mine jumped the track. I stared until the letters blurred, then pressed the paper flat against the steel divider and forced my breathing to behave. Engines don't panic. Men shouldn't either. Proof first, then decisions. I folded the note along its crease, slid it into my wallet next to a picture of us I suddenly couldn't look at. I walked back to the table, steady outside, shaking where no one could see. Patrick worked for me 5 years back, long enough to learn the register, but not long enough to earn the jacket. Charming when he wanted, quick with a rag and a story. We've all hired a kid we hoped would straighten out. Maybe you were that kid once. The cash drawer started coming up light. $3 here, 12 there, the kind of drip you feel in your gut before you see on paper. I called him into the office, sat him across from the warped desk I couldn't afford to replace, and asked him straight. He lied, then confessed, then cried. I let him go without charges. Older men had forgave me smaller things. I paid that forward. I told myself consequences teach better than courtrooms sometimes. He left with his head down and my warning in his ear. Sitting across from Jessica, I understood something ugly. Some lessons don't stick to people who won't keep them. The note said he was in my life already, and that meant more than footsteps in a hallway. It meant numbers. My numbers. I keep a safe in my study behind a dull landscape print Jessica picked at a craft fair. Nothing fancy, just paperwork, spare cash, backups of backups. The note named it, and that shook me in a way I don't like admitting. I saw, in my head, the night 2 winters ago when Jessica asked for the combination just in case, the way you ask for a spare key before a trip. I told her, then laughed and said she'd forget. She didn't. You can love a person and still misplace your judgment. That's how trust actually breaks, not with shouting, but with a small favor that turns into a crowbar. I watched her lift her phone now, thumb moving fast, eyes not quite meeting mine. I didn't accuse. I logged the moment like a mechanic logs a noise. Repeatable, undeniable, dangerous. I don't snoop. Never needed to. But secrecy has a sound. It's the phone tilted just off center, the screen dimmed, the shoulder angled like a shield. Jessica has never been careless. That's part of why our life worked. Tonight, she was too careful. A text came in and she flinched. Small, but I've known that body longer than any car on my lot. Gail's asking about dessert, she offered without me asking. I nodded. People our age know theater when we see it. She scrolled with her thumbnail, a little too slow, as if timing a reply with a thought that wasn't hers. I lifted my coffee and kept a joke ready in my mouth in case she looked up. The server asked about pie. Maybe to go, I said. If you've ever tried to hold a family together with routine, you know that ordering pie is sometimes the only tool you've got. We boxed sweetness we wouldn't taste and walked to the parking lot like a couple in a commercial. There's a picture in our hallway of a 4th of July, folding chairs, paper plates, a sparkler in Jessica's hand. I used to look at it and feel my blood pressure drop. Tonight, That photo felt like an alibi for a stranger. That's what betrayal does to older memories. It smudges the edges and makes you question your own eyesight. We passed a family in the lot arguing about car seats and bedtime, and I envied them. Not because they were happy, because they were honest about being tired. Jessica threaded her arm through mine the way she always did, and for a second the muscle memory was cruel. My mind took inventory. The cuffed sleeves she wore when she wanted to look effortless, the new perfume with a name I'd never asked, the way she led a half step faster than the conversation. I opened her door, she thanked me, and the we I believed in felt like a borrowed suit that didn't fit anymore. Anger wants the steering wheel, but it shouldn't drive. My old man taught me to count to 10 when you're about to make a fool of yourself. I counted to 50 and back again. What good is being right if you're loud and sloppy about it? So I set rules for the next hour. No accusations, no speeches, no decisions I can't undo. I've seen too many men my age burn down their own garage just to prove they smelled smoke first. I kept my voice ordinary and my questions small. You okay for gas? Need anything at Gale's? She nodded, relieved to be answering things with receipts. I made a mental list of what I needed. Proof, timestamps, footage I already had and hadn't checked in months. If a car starts missing under load, you don't floor it. You listen. Same here. I told her I had to swing by the shop, paperwork. Then I put the truck in drive and let the night take the first move. Gail's place sits on a quiet street where porch lights do most of the talking. We rolled up and Jessica exhaled like she'd been holding a plank. She touched my arm. You sure you don't mind? Handle what you need, I said, and meant it differently than she heard. She kissed my cheek, polite, practiced, and was out of the door with her overnight bag already unzipped. If you've ever watched someone you love step onto a stage you didn't set, you know the urge to reach for the curtain. I didn't. I noted the time, the porch camera blinking, the way she texted before the door opened. The porch light clicked off behind her as if even the house didn't want to watch. A man can be both hurt and disciplined. That's the only reason some of us survive our 40s. I checked my mirrors, took a right at the stop sign, and drove past our turn for home without signaling to my own habits. I've wasted enough years letting anger eat the groceries. Not tonight. I pulled into the Riverside Hotel, a brick box by the river with a lobby that smells like old coffee and newer carpet. I paid cash, the way men of a certain age keep options open. Room on the 5th floor, view of the ridge where our house sits like a postcard. I set the note on the desk, flattened the creases, and opened my small, stubborn toolkit. Phone, contacts, memory. I called Oliver, my lawyer who owes me favors. I didn't ask, I assigned. I pulled up the app for the old study camera I installed back when a break-in down the block made me cautious. I took a breath that counted, not calmed. If your life's ever spun, you know the moment you stop chasing and start steering. That was this. I wasn't going home. I was going to work, on the truth, on the timeline, on the people who had mistaken my kindness for weakness. The Riverside isn't fancy, but the deadbolt clicks like a promise. I set my go bag on the desk, brewed lobby coffee that tastes like cardboard and comfort, and drew the curtains to a slit. From the 5th floor I could see the spine of the ridge and, if I angled just right, a slice of my siding catching moonlight. I taped a legal pad to the glass and wrote times like a foreman, 9:42, 10:17, 10:51, just to keep my head from sprinting. The study camera app showed my office in grainy black and white. The desk I built, the safe behind the bad landscape, the chair Jessica says creaks like a ghost. I set my phone on a folded towel to muffle any buzz. When you're my age, patience isn't a virtue. It's a tool you sharpen by waiting. Outside, the river pushed along like it always does. Inside, my pulse did not. I tightened the binoculars until the world narrowed to a door. At 12:47, my side door opened. Oliver arrived the way trouble and lawyers do, late, tired, and worth the wait. He didn't knock. He texted from the hall. I let him in, and he set a battered duffel on the bed with a look that said we weren't discussing invoices tonight. Professional grade, he muttered, like a pharmacist who knows your chart. Out came GPS trackers the size of nickels, 2 pinhole cameras, a handheld recorder with a mic you could hide in a pen, and a notepad of forms with the right signatures for the wrong sort of hours. We're not kids. He didn't ask why. I didn't explain. People over 30 trade in results more than speeches. He poured hotel water into a plastic cup and said, "You want the cops?" I shook my head. "I want the truth first." He nodded, like a man who remembers debts and intends to keep them. We laid the gear out in rows like wrenches. We had 2 hours to turn shock into a system. I'm not a spy, but I do understand angles. I popped a suction mount on the window for a long-lens phone rig and clipped the recorder to the desk lamp for dictated notes, times, plates, patterns. The study camera connected on the second try, and the little spinning wheel felt like waiting on blood work. Then my office flickered to life. The safe's shadow, the corner plant Jessica insisted we needed, the picture of my father with grease on his thumb. I took a slow lap around the room, testing how the building's heat would shimmer the view, how the river's noise would hide mine. Oliver labeled envelopes with dates. I labeled my fear later. Folks our age learn to break big problems into bolts you can turn. One bolt was the door, another was the driveway, another was the lie I'd swallow until I had no choice. I set an alarm for the hourly pass of a patrol. At 12:47, the alarm wasn't what woke me. A figure slid from the side door, casual like he'd paid for the place. Swagger has a tempo. This one walked to it. Even at a distance, body language tells the truth. Shoulders that lean forward with appetite, head on a swivel trained by practice, not fear. He carried a canvas bag, heavy enough to pull the strap long. I knew that bag. Kept one like it in the study for emergencies, the kind you hope for when a storm hits, not for nights like this. He paused under the motion light and I got the face I'd once hired, Patrick Malone. Charm that looks like trust until it bills you extra. He didn't hurry. Predators don't, not when they think the woods love them. He loaded the bag into a sedan that wasn't his and checked his phone like a man confirming an address. My hands tightened around the binoculars until plastic popped. A text buzzed then, her name on my screen. "Staying at Gale's tonight. Love you." Clean, simple, like a receipt that doesn't match the charge. I stared at the words until they stopped meaning anything, then let them mean everything. I typed, "Okay, be safe." Then I deleted it. In marriage, there's mercy in the pauses you choose, but there's also clarity in the ones you don't. I set the phone face down and wrote the time. If you've ever juggled payroll and property taxes, you know how to hold your breath longer than most. I watched Patrick pull away, headlights cutting across the mailbox I built the summer my back went out. The study camera showed nothing. Quiet paper, quiet chair, because thieves are careful and houses don't talk. My coffee went cold. I didn't warm it. Warm coffee doesn't fix cold facts. I took a photo of the driveway for later, for the folder where truth stacks up until it tips. I let the message sit, unread on her end, and I kept counting. Oliver slid a manila folder across the desk like a dealer who knows the game just changed. "What I could find fast," he said. "Employment gaps, 3 states, charges that didn't stick like mud that dries and falls off a boot. Women's names I didn't know, and one I did. An old vendor's wife I'd sensed was sad for reasons people don't share at the counter. The pattern was cruel by being simple. Charm, access, dependency, drain, vanish. Quarter tanks of gas in cars that should have been full, missing petty cash written off as miscellaneous, passwords traded for pillow talk. Men and women my age can smell a pattern when it repeats twice. This one had been rehearsed. I touched the paper like it might bite. "Can he be stopped?" Oliver asked without asking. "People like him don't stop," I said. "They get stopped." My voice surprised me. It sounded calm. And then I understood. I wasn't chasing him. I was baiting him. Anger wants blood. Strategy wants daylight. I chose daylight, step by step, no hero speeches. If Patrick loved access, I'd offer access he couldn't resist. If Jessica loved a future somewhere sunny and simple, I'd sell one, on paper, in tone, with the calm of a man expanding, not exploding. Give them a road that looks paved, then make it a cul-de-sac with cameras. Men my age know the power of acting like you don't care while you count. I wrote 3 lists, what I know, what I can prove, what I can make them prove for me. Then I wrote a 4th, what I won't do. That list was shorter than I wanted. I called a number I'd kept for years and never hoped to use. Not the cops. The other kind of help, the kind that keeps you out of jail by keeping other people out of your life. When the line picked up, the past answered like it had been waiting. "Walker," he said, voice like gravel in a good driveway. "Clarence Combs doesn't advertise. He consults on security for people who don't want their names on paper and solves problems that can't afford a paper trail. I helped him once when his daughter needed a hand. He helped me later when a break-in on our street got too close. Debts like that don't expire. They mature." I sketched the situation without varnish. He didn't flinch. "You want observation or resolution?" he asked, the way a surgeon says, scalpel or saw. "Observation first," I said. "Documentation, leverage, options after." Silence hummed. "I can have eyes by morning, contingencies by noon. Older men talk like that. Timelines, not emojis." "One more thing," I said. "They think I'm asleep." He chuckled. "Let's let 'em dream." We set terms, places, the price of quiet expertise. Then he asked the question you only answer once. If it comes to it, how far? By dawn, Clarence had more than a plan. He had a picture. "Your boy owes the wrong people," he said, sliding a photo to my screen of Patrick with a man whose smile didn't touch his eyes. Not local, not forgiving. The number was ugly, 250 grand, the kind of debt that puts a clock above your bed. Men who owe that much don't sleep, they scheme. It explained the hurry, the boldness, the night work that treats other people's safes like suggestions. I thought about all the times I'd fronted a customer an extra day to pick up a car, trusting they'd show. Different scale, same math. Desperation makes amateurs sloppy and professionals greedy. "He needs a big score fast," Clarence said, "or he becomes a reminder to someone else." I didn't smile. That's not the kind of justice you cheer. It's the kind you plan around, because desperate men bite the hand you offer. Numbers don't care how you feel. Clarence's team followed digits the way I follow oil leaks. One drip to the next, rag to rag, until you're staring at the crack. Transfers just under reporting limits. New accounts that blinked on and off like porch lights at midnight. Small withdrawals from places that were supposed to sleep. Business, joint savings, even a nibble at retirement. A year of slow theft adds up the way a year of skipped oil changes kills an engine. Quietly, then all at once. "Estimate?" I asked, bracing the way a man braces for a doctor's number. "North of 400, Clarence said. That figure didn't punch me, it steadied me. The story had weight now, not just hurt. I wrote it down, underlined it, circled the date, and then I did the most dangerous thing a betrayed man can do. I stopped being surprised and started balancing the books in my favor. Morning came, and I did what men my age do when life cracks. We show up. I opened the bays, checked clock-ins, signed for a parts delivery, and argued about a tire size with a customer who swore he knew better. Normal is a kind of armor. You keep your rhythm so your hands remember what your heart wants to forget. I smiled at old Mr. Perkins, whose Buick leaks more stories than oil, and I asked Jamie about his kid's science fair. Jessica texted a weather report and a heart. I answered with a thumbs up and the silence I owed myself. If you've ever run a shop or a family, you know, routine keeps panic from spending your money. Behind the counter, I balanced ledgers and balanced myself. In the corner, a stack of brake pads waited like dependable friends. I kept moving parts and moving plans. By noon, the day looked honest again. Underneath, the trap I needed was already taking shape. At lunch, I met my accountant in a quiet office that smells like toner and old coffee. No speeches. Just structure. We reviewed entities, liabilities, and the kind of protections a man puts in place when he's done granting unlimited access. I signed documents that move ownership where it needs to be and limit what anyone can touch without my say-so. If you've ever refinanced a house after a scare, you know the feeling. The pen clicks louder. The paper seems to breathe. I wasn't hiding. I was hardening, putting surge protectors in a life that had been plugged straight into the wall. We set alerts, closed gaps, and made sure future withdrawals would squeal like a bad belt. The goal wasn't to starve anyone, it was to stop the bleeding. My name stayed on what I built. My choices guarded what I loved. When the last signature dried, I felt the floor stop swaying, and the hunt start. Afternoon, I took the slow route through each shop. I didn't ask for oaths, I checked for eyes. Years ago, I paid Will's hospital bill when his boy got hurt. I gave Lily her first full-time hours when nobody else would. Loyalty isn't owed, it's earned, in small deposits over long seasons. I pulled my leads aside, one at a time. If things get noisy, I said, can I count on you to keep tight and keep working? No details, just the promise that I'd be straight with them and the reminder that their paychecks would clear first and last. They nodded the way working people do, brief and binding. We talked torque specs and weekend schedules as if nothing hurt. In the corner, the shop cat slept through our plans. I locked a drawer, pocketed the key, and shook a hand that meant something. If trust is a door without a peephole, today I chose who holds the spare key. I called Maria Gamble, a private investigator who once kept me from signing a bad partnership. Maria doesn't do drama, she does data. Her office sits above a nail salon, quiet glass, quieter questions. I laid out the names, the dates, the note, the cash, the safe. She listened the way a good mechanic listens, head tilted, hearing the rhythm beneath the noise. You want fast or deep? She asked. Both, I said, because sometimes that's the only honest answer. She quoted a number that would make a younger man flinch. I slid an envelope across the desk that told her I was serious. 48 hours, she said, tapping a calendar. But I'll start now. She asked for access, statements, vendor lists, a few passwords I hadn't used since flip phones. I gave her what she needed and kept what she didn't. When I left, she was already dialing. I didn't look back. Professionals don't need pep talks. They need room. Maria called that night with a voice that had gravel in it. You were right about him, she said. You were wrong about them. She sent files, pings, transfers, hotel logs. Patrick had a side pocket Jessica didn't know about. For every dollar she helped move, he skimmed quarters into places she'd never see. Tiny bites, same time every week, the way a slow leak leaves a stain you don't notice until the garage smells wrong. Jessica thought they had $400,000 together. Patrick was closer to 6, and 3 of it wore a mask with her name on it. I didn't feel vindicated. I felt steady. Scams are stories with budgets. This one had 2 endings. He leaves her holding the bill, or they both run and learn running is just a longer way to fall. Either way, I had a new truth to work with. I wasn't facing a couple. I was facing a hierarchy. Costa Rica, pictures of blue water, white smiles, and paperwork that reads like a lullaby if you skip the fine print. Maria found a lease in Jessica's name for a house she'd never seen, signed in a handwriting she'd recognize only when a judge asked. 2-year term. Penalties that would take your breath if the beach didn't. It wasn't romance. It was ballast, something heavy tied to her ankle in case things went bad. I've stood on enough showroom floors to spot a shine job. This one gleamed. Taxes, offshore opportunities, the kind of buzzwords that make tired people dream of soft landings. It wasn't a plan. It was a trap, dressed like a vacation. I could have taken everything to the police right then. I didn't. Not because I doubted the law, but because I wanted the whole truth, not half a confession. And I wanted them to show me how far they were willing to go. The next day I made coffee, shaved, and dialed my voice down to mellow. Jess, I said, what if we didn't work this hard forever? What if we looked at warmer options? I mentioned early retirement like a man who finally hurt his knees. I spoke about taxes and simple living like a guy who reads too many weekend articles. She blinked, surprised, then hopeful in a way I hadn't seen in months. Patrick knows about that stuff, she said, trying to sound casual and sounding anything but. Maybe he could explain? I smiled like a man grateful for advice. People our age know how to leave bait that smells like breakfast. I kept the tone soft. I kept the target big. If she wanted sunshine, I opened a window. If he wanted access, I oiled the hinges. What I didn't offer was control. That I held tighter than ever. I handed Jessica a clean, heavy folder, glossy photos of a hillside house, a draft of a relocation checklist, and expert notes written for her eyes. It was theater with receipts. She flipped pages, and I watched her pulse in her neck count out the cost of every choice she'd already made. This is fast, she said, thumb grazing a page about transferring assets. Opportunities age, I answered, my voice steady enough to make the pages feel older. If you've ever bought a car with a salesman narrating your heartbeat, you know the move. She swallowed hard, asked for the folder to review, and smiled the kind of smile people wear when they're juggling knives. I let her take it home, because some evidence walks itself into better light when you don't drag it. When she left the room, the air changed. Some silences are relief. This one was confirmation. She texted before the door closed. Muscle memory, not manners. I didn't have to read over her shoulder to know the cadence. It was the same rhythm as a parts order. Confirm, nudge, request. I gave the house 5 minutes to be itself, then checked the study cam. Nothing moved except the shadow of a ceiling fan. Good. Elsewhere, Clarence's people were exactly where they needed to be, taking notes a court would respect and a con would fear. My phone buzzed once. Package delivered. That meant the room they favored, his room, was now a confession booth with better audio. I didn't fist pump. I wrote the time. A man my age learns to celebrate with accuracy, not noise. I thought of the first tool my father handed me, heavy and honest. This one turns the right way if you do. I was turning the right way. The next turn would be public, polite, and final. I chose Morton's because it's loud enough to hide private words and bright enough to keep public faces civil. Old wood, white tablecloths, the kind of steakhouse where deals happen between the salad and the check. Let's all meet, I told Jessica, as if trust were on the menu. So Patrick can explain it to both of us. She agreed too fast. I booked a corner booth with a view of both doors and the bar mirror, because young men forget that glass tells the truth. I packed 3 folders, money, movement, and what I call motive, the recordings that sound like love until you add a ledger. I planned the order the way a mechanic plans a teardown, biggest bolts last. I would let them talk. I would let them write their names on their own work. Tomorrow at 7 we'd carve the story open and serve it to the right people in the right light. I got to Morton's 15 minutes early and asked for a corner booth where I could see both doors and the mirror behind the bar. Old habit, never sit where you can't read the room. The place smelled like seared steak and pepper, comfort for men who sign checks. I ordered club soda. I needed a clear head, not bravado. The host polished silver that didn't need polishing. Couples laughed like they'd earned it. I spread 3 folders on the banquette beside me, money, movement, motive, and ran my finger over each tab the way you do a checklist before a long drive. I reminded myself of the rules. No shouting, no cursing, no threats I don't intend to keep. When you're my age, restraint is a tool, not a mood. I checked the time, took one slow breath, and placed the first folder on the table where the light was honest. The hostess looked up, smiled, and said, "Your party just arrived." Jessica slid into view first, all careful makeup and the smile you wear to customer service. She smoothed her skirt twice, a tell I'd seen before big holidays and bad news. "Hey," she said, and her eyes traveled past the folders like they were candles, not fuses. Patrick followed with the pace of a man who likes mirrors. He stuck out a hand, firm, friendly, the right amount of eye contact, and called me Wade, like we were alumni, not adversaries. We sat. The waiter poured water and recited specials as if the night were normal. It wasn't. I let the silence hang long enough to weigh something. You learn, running a shop, that people fill quiet with whatever they're afraid of. Jessica cleared her throat. Patrick leaned back like he owned the chair. "Heard you've been considering some international options," he said. His tone was light. His pupils were not. I slid the first folder between us and turned it so they could both read. "Let's talk business," I said, like I say before a transmission quote. Inside were printouts anyone could follow, dates, amounts, accounts, with the kind of highlights that don't need explanations. Transfers just under reporting limits, round numbers that don't happen by accident, small debits on Sundays when our books sleep. "Jessica," I said, keeping my voice even, "you recognize this withdrawal? 50,000 from the operating account last March, authorized with your signature." She went still in the way a deer goes still. The head doesn't move, but the fear does. "It was a short-term reallocation," she tried, choosing words like stepping stones. "And that?" I asked, tapping a page that showed a trail to a new account with a new email. Patrick didn't blink. He smiled at the water glass. Men like him believe charm is armor. The waiter asked if we wanted bread. I said yes, because nothing steadies a hand like something you have to break cleanly. I opened the second folder and slid out 8 glossy photos, grainy stills stamped with dates. My study, my desk, my safe. Patrick in my chair, a gloved hand on paperwork he had no right to touch. One frame showed him holding our wedding photo, smiling at it like he'd told a good joke. Then he set it face down. I didn't look at Jessica when I said, "This was 11:23 p.m. last Tuesday." The steakhouse hum went on, ice in glasses, silver on plates, as if the world hadn't tilted. Jessica whispered, "That isn't what it looks like." The sentence every married person hopes never to hear. Patrick started to talk, stopped, adjusted his cuff as if it might answer for him. Evidence doesn't shout. It sits there and asks you to keep lying. I stacked the photos into a neat pile and set my finger on the last one, his hand hovering over my safe keypad like it owned the numbers. The third folder wasn't pictures. It was paper with teeth. A lease application for a house in Costa Rica. Jessica's name, her social, a signature that matched every birthday card she'd ever written me. Notes on asset movement, cleverly phrased. A timetable to minimize attention. A travel plan that avoided flags like potholes. Then transcripts. Hotel room chatter turned into words on a page. "We'll be gone before he knows," Patrick said in one. "He thinks in garages. We think in airports." The arrogance didn't make me angry. It made me accurate. I watched Jessica shrink 1 inch in that chair, as if the world had demanded a down payment she couldn't make. Patrick leaned forward finally, playing the adult in the room. "Wade, this looks worse than it is." He smiled like a brochure. "Good," I said, tapping the lease, "because the penalties on this look worse than you planned." There's a kind of quiet that doesn't exist until an ugly truth sits between 3 people. Jessica's fingers worried the edge of a napkin to confetti. Patrick's confidence flickered, then settled. Predators re-level fast. I named small facts, times, amounts, turns of phrase. I didn't accuse, I accounted. Older adults know this power of sticking to the ledger. Jessica tried for contrition and landed on convenience. "We were under pressure," she said, like the problem was gravity. Patrick measured me the way a man measures a bolt he's not sure will hold. "What do you want?" he asked. When someone like him asks that, they're not offering, they're mapping exits. I let the question rest so the weight could collect in his chest. The waiter set down bread and stepped away. Even he could feel the temperature drop. "Before we get there," I said, "there's one more document you should both see." I slid out a single page with clean block letters. A life insurance policy, $2 million, primary beneficiary, Jessica Walker, secondary beneficiary, Patrick Malone. The air changed like a storm rolled across the parking lot. Patrick's eyebrows did a small, honest jump, the first honest thing he'd done all night. He hadn't known. Jessica swallowed and shook her head a fraction too slowly. "It's for security," she said, the word that sounds safe until you place it next to profit. I didn't raise my voice. 6 months ago, I said. Applied the week after your first hotel charge. I tapped the line that listed his name. Contingency planning? Sometimes the question is the verdict. Patrick turned his chin toward her, and the temperature between them fell through the floor. "You didn't tell me," he said, quiet, sharp, lethal. That was the moment I saw it. Their team had just become 2 defendants. I didn't let the silence heal. "While we're sharing," I said, "here are the side accounts." I slid a shorter packet. Maria's neat work. Micro transfers skimming from the very pots Jessica thought were theirs. Patrick's initials tucked into shells with cute names. You don't need Wall Street to read theft. You just need a mortgage and a pen. Jessica's mouth opened, then closed. "You said," she started. "He says a lot," I answered. Patrick kept his face straight, but the math betrayed him. He'd been planning to travel light, her name heavy on the paper, his pockets light enough to float. He turned toward me with that salesman calm. "Wade, we can make this right," he said. I watched his eyes do the fast math of a cornered man. How much truth to trade for time. He wasn't negotiating with me. He was negotiating with whatever came through the door next if this table didn't save him. "Here's how this works," I said, keeping my voice where it belonged, low, steady, final. "You both have a choice. We speak like adults and undo what you did, or other people get involved and they don't care about your reasons." I didn't say who. I didn't have to. Jessica reached for my wrist, then thought better of it. "I never meant," she began. "Meaning is a currency that doesn't spend at tables like this." Patrick straightened, and the nice tone left his words. "You can't prove—" "I can," I said, tapping the 3 stacks: money, movement, motive. "And if you want to test that theory, I'll let you do it from a chair you don't get to choose." Older viewers know this posture. You've had to take it with a contractor or a cousin. Boundaries feel mean only to people who benefit from you not having them. I folded my napkin, set it on the plate, and named terms with the calm of a man who's already moved on. I put $500 cash under the check and stood. "You have 24 hours to transfer back what you took," I said to Patrick, "including what she doesn't know about." Then to Jessica, "You'll sign what my lawyer puts in front of you. No delays, no pity purchases." She started to cry the way adults do, quiet, furious, more at consequences than sin. Patrick's jaw ticked. He'd never intended to stay this long in any town. "If you run," I said, "you won't get far. If you fight, you won't enjoy it." I wasn't bluffing. I was tired. I gathered the folders, left the life insurance page on the table like a mirror, and stepped into the hallway where the air smelled like lemon and relief. My phone buzzed once, a text that read, "Stage set." I didn't answer. Outside, I let the night hit my face and realized something simple. Sometimes leaving the table is the loudest thing a man can do. I left Morton's and let the night cool my face. Then I did something any grown man who's had to manage a crisis learns to do. I let information travel. Not threats. Facts with a little echo. Clarence's team nudged the right reviews, so certain accounts displayed pending verification. A quiet word landed where it needed to. Landlord, manager, one bartender who hears more truth than a courthouse. Federal eyes on a small fraud ring, nothing more. You don't need flashing lights to make guilty people sweat. Paperwork will do. I sent Jessica nothing. She sent, "Are we okay?" I watched the bubbles and put the phone face down on the counter. Fear ages fast when it doesn't get fed. Men my age know rumors don't have to be loud, they have to be believable, and they have to arrive before breakfast. I brewed coffee I didn't drink and laid out a legal pad. By sunrise, the rumor was the loudest person in their rooms. Before 9, Patrick called with a voice trying to sound like a handshake. "Wade, we can fix this," he said, the way a man talks when an ATM just kept his card. He'd tried transfers. Screens gave him the same message grown adults dread. Under review. "You did this," he accused, as if consequences needed a villain. "No," I said. "You did this when you touched what wasn't yours." He pivoted to the sob story professionals use. Tight deadlines, bad partners, temporary cash flow, the American dream with a flat tire. I let him talk until he ran out of adjectives. "Here are the terms," I repeated. "All of it back. Today." He asked for time. "Time," I said, "is what you stole first." The mask slipped. "You don't understand who I owe." I did. I also understood math and mornings and men who run out of road. He wanted a meeting. I gave him a clock, and let the clock do the talking. Jessica arrived at my office mid-morning without the armor. No lipstick, hair pulled back, the look adults wear when the storm finally gets a name. She stood in the doorway like she used to after a funeral. "I never meant—" she started. "You meant it until you were caught," I answered. Not cruel, just finished. She cried the way people our age do, quiet, careful, trying not to make work for anyone. "I'll sign whatever you want," she said. "Can I keep the car? My grandmother's ring?" I thought about the ring. Some things shouldn't pay for other people's lessons. "The ring stays," I said. "The rest depends on honesty." I put a yellow pad between us. "Every account, every device, every passcode you've shared." She laid her phone on the desk like a confession. We set an appointment with Oliver for 3 o'clock. She whispered, "Thank you," but it sounded like, "Please don't end me." I didn't answer. I called Oliver and cleared the calendar. Oliver's conference room smelled like lemon oil and endings, papers squared to corners, pens that glide. We sat across a table too wide for old vows and just wide enough for new rules. No claim on the shops, no claim on the house, no alimony, Oliver read, voice flat as a torque spec. Jessica didn't argue. She initialed, signed, dated, each stroke a receipt for 1,000 smaller choices. The box of tissues stayed mostly full. She used one and folded it in halves, then quarters, then smaller. I watched the ritual and felt nothing lighter than relief. "Are you pressing charges?" she asked, eyes red but steady. "Not today," I said. "Mercy isn't forgetting, it's scheduling." She nodded like a person who just realized quiet can be a gift. When the last page slid to my side, the room grew larger. Freedom is a silent click of a door you can finally lock. I thanked Oliver, stood, and dialed the only number left. "Status?" I asked. Clarence doesn't waste words. "His people are calling my people," he said. "Debt's due. Your name isn't in it." That's all I wanted, to step out of the splash zone and let gravity take over. I didn't need to push, I needed to stop shielding. Up. "Stand aside," I said. "Let the debt find the debtor." There's a line between justice and spectacle. Men my age know not to cross it. I didn't go anywhere. I didn't ask for updates. I sat in my truck behind the first shop I ever owned and watched a kid I'd just hired torque wheels the way I taught him. Cross pattern, steady hand. Somewhere across town, a door knocked that wasn't polite. I thought about the first time I let Patrick off easy and how some lessons only learn on the second try. By dusk, the city sounded normal again, and his number stopped lighting my phone. By midweek, Patrick wasn't answering anyone. The news didn't call it scandal. They called it a missing person, the way small towns pad bad facts with soft words. His sedan turned up at the airport. No ticket, no boarding record, just a car that would need a jump if it ever had a future. A detective stopped by my shop, steady woman, patient eyes. She asked about old employment, recent contact, and whether I felt concerned for Mr. Malone's safety. I gave her what was true. He'd stolen from me. I'd told him to stop. We'd met at a steakhouse and ended badly. She wrote it down like a grocery list and left a card on my desk. Men my age know when a story moves out of our hands and into someone else's report. I locked the office, checked the bays, and watched my guys finish a brake job like the world still wanted stopping power. Before she drove off, the detective asked one last name, Jessica Walker, and waited to see if I flinched. Jessica didn't vanish. She shrank. New number, new email. A post office box instead of an address. Shame doesn't knock loud. It lowers its voice and moves at night. She sent me one message I chose to keep. A plain apology without ornament. "I'll sign what needs signing. I won't make trouble." I believed the first sentence mattered less than the second. Word around town, quiet, careful, was that she'd taken a bookkeeping job a few exits away. The kind where you keep your head down and your lunch simple. If you've ever watched a life deflate, you know the sound. Not a pop, a slow leak. I didn't gloat. I also didn't respond beyond what the paperwork required. Mercy, for adults, is often a boundary. I told Oliver to finalize the last filings and told myself the ring stays hers and the past stays put. When the detective called back about follow-ups, I said, "You'll have my cooperation, not my commentary," and meant it. I signed a lease on a cinder block building near the neighborhood that built me. Bars on the windows, hope in the daylight. We painted the bays ourselves, hung shop lights bright enough to make a man honest, and put a fresh coffee pot beside a donation jar for the local youth league. I hired 2 kids who reminded me of grief with potential and taught them cross-pattern torque and how to say, "I don't know yet," without shame. Word spread the old way, one satisfied radiator at a time. When you've been hit hard, expansion isn't bragging, it's breathing. I tightened my systems, dual signatures, alerts that squeal, cameras that only I can move. Not paranoia, maintenance. Engines live longer when you change the oil on schedule. Trust does too. Clarence dropped by, said the neighborhood was quieter. I nodded and swept the floor like a man sweeping a mind. Standing in that 4th bay, I finally understood the lesson I'd say out loud next. Here's what the fourth bay taught me. You can build something with calloused hands and early mornings, but it only lasts if you protect it with rules and a lock. I thought trust was a gift you wrapped once. It isn't. It's a tool you check, same as a jack, solid before you crawl under. Men my age know the rhythm. Mortgages, layoffs, appointments, kids need braces, parents need rides. You keep going because that's what adults do. But going isn't enough. You have to guard. Guard your name with paperwork, your time with boundaries, your money with alerts, your heart with honesty that doesn't blink. Kindness without a backbone invites thieves. Mercy without memory repeats the lesson. So I trust carefully and verify kindly. I forgive when it makes me stronger, not when it makes me smaller. I build, and I stand watch. Next, I'll tell you what I kept, what I let go, and the promise I live by. I'll end with this. In a world full of predators, I chose to be the one they don't hunt. Not louder, clearer, not cruel, prepared. I rebuilt what mattered, locked what I'd left open, and learned that mercy without boundaries is just another invitation. That folded note on Highway 47 didn't break me, it tuned me. I still show up at dawn, fix what's honest, and guard what isn't. If you've carried a mortgage, buried a parent, or kept a promise when it cost you sleep, you know the choice I faced. Do you forgive the person who cut your life open, or do you finish the lesson so it never repeats? I made my choice. Now I want yours. Drop one word in the comments. Forgive or finish. Tell me why. Share the moment you learned to protect what you built. And if you want the next chapter, when the detective knocks and old debts test new rules, hit follow. Your verdict decides where we go next.